Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my reading journey. Hope you're all doing fine. And today we're going to continue as usual with Seneca's letter from a Stoic, moral letters to Lucius. And today I'm going to read, you're going to listen to three letters 42, 43, and 44. So let's get started with the first one on values. Has that friend of yours already made you believe that he is a good man, and yet it is impossible in so short a time for one either to become good or be known as such? Do you know what kind of man I now mean when I speak of a good man? I mean one of the second grade, like your friend. For one of the first class, perhaps springs into existence like the phoenix only once in 500 years. And it is not surprising either that greatness develops only at long intervals. Fortune often brings into being commonplace powers which upward to please the mob, but she holds up for one approval that which is extraordinary by the very fact that she makes it rare. This man, however, of whom you spoke, is still far from the state which he professes to have reached, and if he knew what it meant to be a good man, he would not yet believe himself such. Perhaps he would even despair of his ability to become good. But you say he thinks ill of evil men. Well, so do evil men themselves, and there is no worse penalty for vice than the fact that it is dissatisfied with itself and all its fellows. But he hates those who make an ungoverned use of great power suddenly acquired. I retort that he will do the same thing as soon as he acquires the same powers. In the case of many men, their vices, being powerless, escape not notice. Although, as soon as the persons in question have become satisfied with their own strength, the vices will be no less daring than those which prosperity has already disclosed. These men simply lack the means whereby they may unfold their wickedness. Similarly, one can handle even a poisonous snake, while it is stiff with cold. The poison is not lacking. It is merely numbered into inaction. In the case of many men, their cruelty, ambition, and indulgence only lack the favor of fortune to make them their crimes that would match the worst. That their wishes are the same, you will in a moment discover. In this way, give them the power equal to their wishes. Do you remember how, when you declared that a certain person was under your influence, I pronounced him fecund, a bird of passage, and said that you held him not by the foot, but merely by a wing? Was I mistaken? You grasped him only by a feather. He laughed it in your hands and escaped. You know what an exhibition he afterwards made of himself before you. How many of the things he attempted were to recoil upon his own head. He did not see that in endangering others, he was tottering to his own downfall. He did not reflect how burdensome were the objects which he was bent upon and attaining, even if they were not superfluous. Therefore, with regard of the objects which we pursue, and for which we strive with great effort, we should note this truth. Either there is nothing desirable in them, or the undesirable is preponderant. Some objects are superfluous, others are not worth the price we pay for them. But we do not see these clearly, and we regard things as free gifts when they really cost us very dear. Our stupidity may be clearly proved by the fact that we hold that buying refers only to the objects for which we pay cash, and we regard as free gifts the things for which we spend our very selves. These we should refuse to buy if we were compelled to give in payment for them our houses or some attractive and profitable estate, but we are eager to attain them at the cost of anxiety, of danger, and of lost honor, personal freedom, and time. So true it is that each man regards nothing as cheaper than himself. Let us therefore act in all our plans and conduct just as we are accustomed to act whether we approach a huckster who has certain wares for sale. Let us see how much we must pay for that which we crave. Very often the things that cost nothing cost us the most heavily. I can show you many objects, the quest and acquisition of which have wrested freedom from our hands. We should belong to ourselves if only these things did not belong to us. I would therefore have you reflect thus, not only when it is a question of gain, but also when it is a question of loss. This object is bound to perish. Yes, it was a mere extra. You will live without it just as easily as you have lived before. If you have possessed it for a long time, you lose it after you have had your fill of it. If you have not possessed it long, then you lose it before you have become wedded to it. You will have less money, yes, and less trouble. Less influence, yes, and less envy. Look about you and note the things that drive us mad, which we lose with a flood of tears. You will perceive that it is not the loss of that troubles. It is not the loss that troubles us with reference to these things, but a notion of loss. No one feels that they have been lost, but his mind tells him that it has been so. He that owns himself has lost nothing. But how few men are blessed with ownership of self. Farewell. Alright guys, let's move on with the next letter. On the relativity of fame. Do you ask how the news reached me and who informed me that you were entertaining this idea of which you had said nothing to a single soul? It was that most known of persons, gossip. What, you say, am I such a great personage that I can stir up gossip? Now there is no reason why you should measure yourself according to this part of the world. Have regard only to the place where you are dwelling. Any point which rises above adjacent points is great at the spot where it rises. For greatness is not absolute. Comparison increases it or lessens it. A ship which looms large in the river seems tiny when on the ocean. A rudder, which is large for one vessel, is small for another. So you in your providence are really of importance, though you are scorn yourself. Men are asking what you do, how you dine, and how you sleep, and they find out too. Hence, there is all the more reasons for you living circumspectly. Do not, however, deem yourself truly happy until you find that you can live before man's eyes, until your walls protect but do not hide you. Although we are apt to believe that these walls surround us, not to enable us to live more safely, but that we may sin more secretly. I shall mention a fact by which you may weigh the worth of a man's character. You will scarcely find anyone who can live with his door wide open. It is our conscience, not our pride, that has put doorkeepers at our doors. We live in such a fashion that being suddenly disclosed to view is equivalent to being caught in the act. What profits it, however, to hide ourselves away and to avoid the eyes and ears of man? A good conscience welcomes the crowd, but a bad conscience, even in solitude, is disturbed and troubled. If your deeds are honorable, let everybody know them. If base, what matters? It is that no one knows them, as long as you yourself know them. How wretched you how wretched you are if you despise such witness. Farewell. Alright, guys, and the final one for today. On philosophy and pedigrees. You're again insistent to me that you are nobody. You are a nobody, and saying that nature is the first place and fortune in the second, have treated you too scurvily, and this is in spite of the fact that you have it in your power to separate yourself from the crowd, to rise to the highest human happiness. If there is any good in philosophy, it is this, that it never looks into pedigrees. All men, if traced back to their original source, spring from the gods. You are a Roman knight, and your persistent work promoted you to this class. Yet, surely there are many of whom the 14 rows are buried. The Senate chamber is not open at all to all. The army, too, is scrupulous in choosing those whom it admits to toil and danger. But a noble mind is free to all men. According to these tests, we may all gain distinction. Philosophy neither rejects nor selects anyone. Its light shines for all. Socrates was not aristocrat. Cleanthes worked at a well and served as a hired man watering a garden. Philosophy did not find Plato already a nobleman, it made him one. Why then should you despair of becoming able to rank with men like this? They are all your ancestors, if you conduct yourself in a manner worthy of them. And you will do so if you convince yourself at the outset that no man outdoes you in real nobility. We have all had the same number of forefathers. There is no man whose first beginning does not transcend memory. Plato says, every king springs from a race of slaves, and every slave has had not kings among his ancestors. The flight of time, with its vicissitudes, has jumbled all such things together, and fortune has turned them upside down. Then, who is well born? He who is by nature well fitted for virtue. That is the one point to be considered. Otherwise, if you hark back to antiquity, everyone traces back to a date before which there is nothing. From the earliest beginnings of the universe to the present time, we have been led forward out of origins that were alternately illustrious and ignoble. A hull full of smoke, begrimed busts does not make the nobleman. No past life has been lived to lend us glory, and that which has existed before us is not ours. The soul alone renders us noble, and it may rise superior to fortune out of any earlier condition, no matter what that condition has been. Suppose then that you were not a Roman knight, but a freedman. You might nevertheless, by your own efforts, come to be the only free man amid a throng of gentlemen. How, you ask? Simply by distinguishing between good and bad things, without patterning your opinion from the populace. You should look not to the source from which these things come, but to the goal towards which they tend. If there is anything that can make life happy, it is good on its own merits, for it cannot degenerate into evil. Where then lies the mistake? Since all men crave the happy life, it is that they regard the means for producing happiness as happiness itself, and while seeking happiness, they are really fleeing from it. For although the sum and substance of the happy life is unalloyed freedom from care, and though the secret of such freedom is unshaken confidence, yet men gather together that which causes worry, and while traveling life's treacherous road, not only have burdens to bear, but even draw burdens to themselves. Hence they recede farther and farther from the achievement of that which they seek, and the more effort they expend, the more they hinder themselves and are set back. This is what happens when you hurry through a maze. The faster you go, the worse you're entangled. Farewell. Alright, guys. Thank you for joining me today. See you tomorrow on the next letters. Thank you. Bye.